Absolutely, yeah. So we're in town for Microsoft Ignite the Tour. I don't know if you heard about it, but it's quite a big event. We are going in 30 different cities worldwide, and mostly it's about bringing, I would say, the best of Ignite to locations. Of course, I'm partial, I'm biased. And we also take the occasion that we have to come and speak at user groups. I think tonight we have something like 4 different events going on. And I'm more of a .NET person, and so you have the blessing or the curse, depending on how you feel, after the session to be with me. So I'm going to show you cognitive services, and the reason why I created this talk is as a developer, it's really hard to understand what is AI, how does it work, right? And there are a number of things, and cognitive services is really designed to enable developers to take advantage of AI without having to worry too much about how does it even work, okay? So that's kind of the idea. So machine learning, it's pretty complicated. I do have another talk which is called a gentle introduction to AI, which explains the math and the theory behind machine learning. But for me, when I started creating that other talk, the introduction to machine learning talk, it was very scary because I did something that you probably shouldn't do. I submitted the talk to a conference before I created it, and then they accepted the talk, and I was very scared. I was, oh my God, now I need to really, understand how it works. And thankfully, I have a very nice colleague called Cesc Juarez on my team who he's a very good data scientist, and so he understands. He's actually one of the few persons I know who understands how machine learning works, and so he sat down with me and explained to me, and then we created the talk, and that went well. So that was cool. But really, machine learning is not easy. So when you study machine learning, you see some diagrams like that. It's very scary, right? It looks like a spider web. It's actually a kind of a representation of multi-layered neural networks, what we sometimes call deep neural networks. Then you have some equations like that, which, some of them I learned when I was in engineering school, but that was already 25 years ago. So since then, I kind of forgot already a little bit. And some of them are a little bit scary. And really, it's very different from programming. So I don't know if all of you are developers. Anybody is not a developer in here? No, everybody is a developer. Okay, one person. But I mean, still, right? When we do coding, it's kind of well known how it works, right? We take an algorithm, and between you and me, but don't repeat, we go on Stack Overflow, we copy paste stuff. That's how we do. And then after that, we translate that into code, right? And that can be .NET. Typically, it's a .NET meetup, so I assume that most of you do .NET or JavaScript or whatever framework you like. And then we take data, and typically it's a small amount of data that we are going to take, compared to machine learning, which is dealing with huge amounts of data. Okay, and then we get at the output we get answers, and that process is always repeatable. If you take the same algorithm and the same data, you get the same answers, exactly the same answers, which is why we can do unit test. Right? Unit testing is a process of asserting answers given some known data. Okay, that's how we test code. But when we do machine learning, we switch things around. So we are going to switch the answers and the algorithm. So we are going to feed some answers to the machine. Later I'll show you a demo on how you train a machine learning model by giving it some pictures which are tagged. For example, we say, okay, this is a picture of an apple. There is a tag saying apple, and that's the answer. Okay, and the picture is the data. And the amount of data that we need to train an AI model is quite big. In fact, it can be very large. Okay, which is some of the reason why there are some difficulties with bias in data, etc., etc. It's quite complicated. We take that, we feed that into some frameworks, for example, TensorFlow, PyTorch, CoreML, etc., etc., and then we get at the output an algorithm, which in machine learning we call a model. And then this model, we want to use it in production. So that was the training part, okay? Once we have a trained model, we feed that into more code, and we feed that with more data. And this time that's the data we want to test. For example, we take a picture of a real apple, and we say, now I want to test that, okay? And then at the output, we get some predictions. Notice that I didn't talk about answers here. I talk about predictions. Predictions are typically what we get out of an AI model. Between 0 and 100%, I think at 85% that it looks like an apple. Okay, I also think that it kind of looks like an orange, but only 15%. Okay, and if I take a picture of the same apple twice, I might get some very different predictions at the end, because it really depends on a lot of things like lighting, shadows, etc., resolution of the picture, etc., etc. Okay, so it's not a very repeatable process like the unit test process. So all this to say that for us developers, sometimes it's a little bit hard to understand how am I even going to train an AI model? How am I going to even make sense of all that? You know, that's why people who do AI typically are not developers. They are typically data scientists, which is another profession altogether. Okay. So here we go. So artificial intelligence. Well, okay. If we take a scale from easy to hard, I would say, all right, training a new model from scratch, that's what data scientists do, that can be really hard. And on the other hand, using an existing model that somebody published as an API, this is easy. And then somewhere in the middle, we have something that we can also do with cognitive services, and I'll show you how to do that, which is taking a pre-trained model, a model which is already pre-trained with a certain domain, for example, food, I don't know, people, etc., and then customizing it. And a good example is, for example, a facial recognition AI model, where if you take the pre-trained one, it's going to be able to tell me, for example, okay, this is a gentleman, you know, with hair almost, and very handsome, right? Because let's face it. And well, yeah, I mean, somebody has to say it, right? Nobody else is going to say. And smiling, for example, that's something that the pre-trained model can do. But if I train it myself with pictures of myself tagged with my name, then it's going to say, oh, and in addition, I recognize that person as being most probably Laurent Bugnion at 95% chances, for example. Okay, so it's a way to refine the pre-trained model if you want. So what I told you about training the AI model, all those scary equations, that's rather on the hard side. We're not going to do that today, but if you would want to do that, we are equipped on Azure with a lot of tools to do that. For example, we have virtual machines which are pre-installed with all kinds of tools like Python, like Jupyter Notebooks, TensorFlow, PyTorch, all those frameworks that you can use. And also those machines, because to train a model you need a lot of data, and usually you need a lot of GPU power, okay, graphic processing unit, because you do a lot of parallel processing to go faster, and those machines cost a lot of money to buy. Okay, that's why most people don't actually do that. So if you try to do that on this machine, for example, it's going to take forever because the GPU on this machine is very weak. Okay, but we have machines in Azure which are very expensive to buy, but the good news is that you can actually rent them just for like 15 minutes or whatever. So it's what we call a cluster of machines, and then you submit your job to the cluster of machines and you say, iterate through the model for like 20 times, 50 times, whatever. Okay, and then we have those models that can be created like that on Azure for a reasonable price, I would say, because instead of buying the machine with a lot of GPU and that's going to cost thousands and thousands of US$, then you rent them for just 15 minutes, and then at the end it's an affordable price. Okay, so we have a lot of tools, etc. I'll let you check it out if you're interested. Azure ML, Azure Machine Learning is the topic here. And so if we take the AI platform on Microsoft, we have a lot of tools and services which go into that, for example, in the data, computation, like the machines, etc. But today we are going to concentrate on those so-called pre-built AI, cognitive services, that's what we call them. Okay? Good. All right, so we are not going to do that. We are going to concentrate on the easy/medium side of the scale here. And so cognitive services are exposed as APIs. We have a number of such APIs. I'm going to show you a demo in a moment, especially in the field of those few domains: vision, speech, language, decision, and search. So what does it mean? Oh, and by the way, just coming back, and those are exposed as REST APIs. Okay, so you can always call them from any language that can do a REST call. You can use them. But we also have SDKs, for example, for .NET, JavaScript, Java, etc. So basically, the SDK is kind of a wrapper around the REST calls. So it's just a way to make it. Some people prefer to use the REST API. Some people directly. Some people prefer to use the SDK, which is a little bit higher language, higher level, a little bit an abstraction. Okay, so if we take a closer look to those cognitive services, in the field of vision, we have things like the video indexer. That's a service where you submit a video or sound, for that matter. It can be also pure sound. And then it's going to do quite a few things. It's going to tell you, oh, I hear like 5 different people in this video, and person number 1 rather sounds happy, in average, person number 2 rather sounds sad or whatever. And then they can also extract notes, for example, from the video and tell you, okay, that person number 1 starts speaking at 12 minutes and then speaks until 15 minutes, for example. And if you train it, you can even they can even recognize who is speaking. Okay, for example, I don't know, the CEO of Microsoft is speaking from 12 to 15 minutes. Computer vision, this is going to be one of the demos. Face recognition, I already mentioned that. Which is able to extract emotion, like for example, this person is smiling, this person is sad. Custom vision, which is actually we are going to do custom vision. This is one of those customizable service. Form recognizer is an interesting one. It's a new service we have, which is able, for example, if you submit some PDFs, it's going to be able to extract things like the address, the name of the person, etc. So you can train it with some sample documents, for example, and even if the documents don't look exactly the same, the AI model is going to be able to learn from what you train it with, and then you can submit some big batches of document, and it's going to be able to extract that, give you that as a JSON file, or you can transform that later as a table, for example. Ink recognizer for handwritten recognizing, for example. Speech, we have speech to text, text to speech. Speaker recognition, again, it's one that you can train, where you say, all right, I hear that person is speaking. We have language, we have things like text analytics, which is going to extract sentiment, for example, from a text. Translation, we support something like 60 languages at the moment. The Q&A maker is also an interesting one. It's a service which allows you to build a bot, like an automated bot, based on a frequently asked questions website. So if you have for your firm, for example, a website, let's imagine that the website says opening hours 8 to 12 and then 1 to 5, okay? And then somebody on the bot, like in Skype or in Teams or in, I don't exactly know which, I think they support also Facebook Messenger, like some kind of messenger, asks in natural language, are you open right now, for example, then the bot is able, based on the frequently asked question, to answer. Because he understands that are you open right now has to do with the opening hours. Okay, so it's a service which is interesting. Language understanding, it's a huge part of the language part, so it's basically natural language processing. Okay. Then we have what we call decision. For example, they use clustering. If you submit some data and they are going to tell you, okay, there is an anomaly here. For example, suddenly you have a peak in the data or these kind of things. Etc., etc. Okay, and all the search as well. So intelligent search, customizable search, which are part of those. So quite a lot of things to do. And then after that, what's really interesting is that you can chain those services also. Like, for example, here we have an example where it's a system that was built already some time ago, where you have, on one hand, you have some transcription, you have facial recognition where they are able to tag on the video who is talking. It's also going to be able to extract some notes based on certain keywords, for example. So the notes appear on the right-hand side a little bit later in the video. And then at the end of the video, you can always check the full video when you get the slides later. They also do some translation, so you can have some live translation. If you go to Microsoft Inside the Tour, for example, or any one of our first-party conference, we have actually automatic caption as we speak. And that's, by the way, a service which is available in PowerPoint directly. So as I am, actually I might be able to demo that. Let me see. So if I go in presentation mode, where is it already? I think that's the one. Yes. Okay, so now, for example, it's starting subtitles. Interesting. In the setting, because I was in Sao Paulo last time I demonstrated that, it actually translated to Brazilian. So let me see if I can change that. It is in slideshow. Subtitle setting, language, and let me see if I find Czech. Yes. Okay, we have Czech. Perfect. So now we can try again. Let me start it. Here we go. And so now I'm going to try to start, and it's listening, and now it's translating in what I hope is Czech. I don't understand Czech language, so I cannot confirm. But basically, it's using one of our cognitive service, the natural language understanding, to do that. So it's kind of nice for inclusion, right? Because first of all, people who have difficulties hearing can understand me better. But in that case, even the language barrier disappears, or at least I hope so. I don't know what it's saying. Maybe it's saying that guy is just talking bullshit. Don't listen to him, right? How did he translate bullshit? I'm curious.
80% correct, maybe.
Okay, it's already better than nothing, right? It's a help. Obviously, it's not a full thing. I can leave it on for the rest of the presentation, but of course, when I go to the demo now, it's going to disappear. So for the demo, if you want to try things out, you can always go to this portal, which is azure.microsoft.com/cognitive services, or just look for Azure Cognitive Services, you will find it. And here you have a lot of descriptions, documentation, and you also have the possibility to try things out. So for example, let's go to Vision. And if I go to Custom Vision here, it's going to give you a page where you can try things out, so that can be interesting. So if I go further down, where is it now? Sorry, they keep changing the portal, so every time I have to look for it. Let's see, APIs, features, Vision, Custom Vision. Oh, let's try the face recognition. I think here we have more things going on. Okay, facial. Yes, okay, this is what I was looking for. So here you have some things that you can just try for free without any commitment, okay? And for example, this is a picture of a lady. I'm just going to switch quickly because it works a little bit better if I choose one of those models. I think 02 works better. All right. Oh, no, it came back. Sorry. There is one of the model which is simple and the other one is a little bit more detailed. So for example, this model here, we have an ID for a face. Why do you want an ID for a face? Is if you have multiple people on multiple pictures, then it can identify the same person. Then you see we have quite a lot of information, right? We have where is the face of the person in pixels. So that's going to allow you to draw a square on the person's face like they did here. Then we have face attributes, like, okay, he's not bald, okay? There's only 6% chances or risks that he's bald, so he's not bald. Hair color, confidence 100% black. It might be also brown at 95%, okay? So this is typical from AI, right? It's going to tell you, I think that it's black. At 100% means I'm pretty sure it's black, but, you know, it might be also 43% gray, right? So it's not totally clear. It doesn't mean that the person has 43% of his hair gray. It means that the model is about 43% certain that the person has gray hair, which means if it's below 50%, probably you can eliminate that, right? But you see how you have to deal with those problems, right? 3% blonde. Well, yeah, clearly he's not blonde. He's smiling at 100%, the pose of the head. So you see you have really a wealth of information, right? Gender, male. Age 33, that's an estimate. In my case, it always goes rather, or it rather tells me that I'm older than real. Facial hair, well, pretty much zero facial hair, that's correct. No glasses, no makeup. Emotion, happiness 100%, so we can extract those emotions: anger, contempt, disgust, fear, happiness, neutral, sadness, surprise. No occlusions. Occlusions would mean if he has some part of the face which is occluded by an object, for example. It's not blurred. The exposure is good. So you see, you have really a lot, even face landmarks, right? Which pupils are in which locations, in pixels again. So really ton of information. And you can also submit your own images. So I did prepare, oops, if I could just go a little bit higher here. I have a picture that I prepared, which is online, so you just submit the URL. And here you see this is a picture of my colleagues and myself at a dinner. And here, for example, it says I'm 41, which is cool because it was last year. I was not 41 last year. I'm way older than that. But, it's good. Happiness, no glasses. So for each of the face here, it extracted the same JSON that you saw for one person before. Okay? And you see that it's able to recognize 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 faces. Even on this picture, which is, it's pretty small, right? Okay, at the back, it's not able anymore. It's quite dark. It's a little bit blur. I think we can give it credit, but basically it's working pretty well, right? So that's something you can try. And let me see if I forgot something. Oh yeah, one thing I want to show you also, we have something called the Intelligent Kiosk. And so if you go on either in the Windows Store or on GitHub, you are able to find this. So the version on GitHub is slightly different than the one I'm going to show you here. But basically, it is a collection of a lot of different services, okay? And then you can try them out. For example, the real-time crowd insight is interesting because it works on video. And so it's going to say, okay, now my face is neutral. And if I say hello here, now I'm happy, okay? I can try to be sad also. Okay, now I'm sad, okay. And so you can try things out. If you take the version from GitHub, it has also more things that it's going to show. It's always the same service in the back end, but it's also going to be able to show, for example, if it thinks I'm a male or a female. There's a reason why we don't show that in demos. It's because it's very, it can be offensive to people to say you're a male when you're actually a female, especially people who are transitioning. So we try to be sensitive about that. But basically that's what it does. So here it does only emotions, but in the version that you have on GitHub, it would also show, for example, age and things like that. So if you're interested, you can try things out. And also on GitHub, of course, you have the code. So it can be interesting because you can see that's a Windows 10 application, UWP application. You can see how they do the calls to the REST services. And you have a lot of different things. Like, for example, this one is funny. It's going to match my emotion. Let's try sad. And it's going to try to match me with a baby. So, here it thought that I'm actually... Well, okay, we cannot quite see with only the face. Sorry, the screen is a little bit small, so that's why it doesn't show. Or it can try to match me with, what is there? With celebrities, for example. Oh, Face API Explorer is actually interesting. Let's try here, okay? Because here it's going to show you, I think, all the stuff that we have in the API. Like, okay, I don't have mustache, I don't have a beard, I don't have sideburns, I don't have glasses, no makeup. Well, no makeup. Emotion, but also the pose, etc. So basically, you can try and see how they call the service, how they, extract get the JSON back, and then extract the information from the JSON. That can be interesting. Here we see the landmarks of the face, neutral expression. Okay, I guess that's true. All right, good. So this is those examples if you want to use pre-trained services. Okay, I didn't train them in any manner. I just take them out of the box, and that's what they are able to give me, which is already not bad. But of course, sometimes, oh yes, first of all, let's talk more about like one concrete example why you could use this type of services. And the example that I'm showing is, let's say you're a small startup, 2 people or whatever, and you sell products, and then you get some feedback from your customers, okay? So some feedback may be good, and then you don't need to do anything, really. Some feedback may be bad, and then you better do something, because otherwise those customers are going to be unhappy, okay? So if you get feedback in English, for me it's fine. I can understand it. German, I happen to speak German because I live in Switzerland, in Zurich. It's not my first language though, and so that might be hard as well, okay? But then maybe sometimes I even get comment because you want to go worldwide with your products, and then you have comments in Spanish or in Chinese or in Japanese or in Korean or any language, and you don't understand, right? So it gets hard really, because how do you react to this feedback? And so one way that you can do, for example, is use those cognitive services. So here I have an example. Where do I have this example? Oh, interesting. Closed. So let's go back to the portal. And I opened it before, but for some reason the window closed. And if I go here and here I have a website, and this website is connected to a database, and this database is going to have a number of comments from users. So let's see the API. Sorry, I'm just waiting for the portal to come alive. Hello. Here we go. All right. Cool. So this is the website. Okay. So you see all the commands that we have in a SQL database. And one thing that you could do, for example, is take advantage of those services. Like every time you get a new command, and to do that, you can use, for example, an Azure function, a serverless Azure function, or a logic app, or whatever. Then it can analyze what is happening. So here, for example, if I analyze what Bob is saying, it's just taking a second to go through everything. And then it's going to say, okay, it's 90% positive. The language is English, so there is no translation. And the keywords are best hammer and money. So this is 90% positive. I don't need to do anything about that. Okay, it's a satisfied customer. I'm happy, satisfied. But basically, I don't have to wake up at 2 a.m. to answer his query. Okay. Now this one, on the other hand, website search is terrible. Well, yeah, okay, 10%. Okay, then that's bad. So probably you want to do something. There are a few which are even more important, like Madoka, for example, in Japanese. I don't speak any Japanese, right? So here, you see what it says? It says 49%. So 50% positive very often means it's a question. Okay, it's not negative, it's not positive. And Japanese, and the question translated says, do you sell double-edged blades? And here 49% means I probably want to react immediately, because if she has to wait too long for my answer, she will go and buy double-edged blades at Amazon, and she will never come back on my website. Okay, so that's in that particular case, I would probably want to get an SMS. Okay, if you're a startup, you have just a few people, you want to be notified even if you're out of the house and be able to reply very fast. Okay, so this is just an example on how you can leverage those services. So the way it works, and by the way, the code is on GitHub, so at the end I'll give you the repo if you want to check it out. The way it works is that you can always do things in two different manners. Like I told you, you have REST APIs or you have the SDK. So for REST, in .NET, what we will do is build an HTTP client, okay? And we give it the base address, which is what we call the endpoint where it's running, which is always using a region. You know that in Azure we have 54 different regions, okay? Like Western Europe is one, we have Northern Europe, we have UAE, for example, is a region, we have West US, Eastern US, etc. So you need to say where is the cognitive service created that you want to use for that. So you go in Azure on the portal, which would be here. Do you see it? Yes. And then you say create a resource, okay? And then you say, all right, I want to create a new resource. I want to create a custom vision, for example, service, or I want to create a text analytics, for example, service, okay, etc. So you create your service. Then it will ask you in which region do you want to put it. Usually we choose a region which is close to our users, okay, to have less latency. And then that will provide you with a subscription key, okay? And so the subscription key is used for us because we are going to give you a number of calls for free. It's quite a generous amount, but at some point, I have kids, they like to eat, I need some money also a little bit, okay? So I'm going to ask you to pay a certain amount of money, and this is by usage. So usually for Cognitive services, it's by number of calls that you do to the API, and then you have to pay, and this is billed to your subscription. That's why we need a subscription key. And then after that, you're going to submit, here in that case, some byte data. So basically, you take the JSON, and then you're going to convert that to binary. And then you submit that in a post to this URL, which is text/analytics/version/sentiment, which is a sentiment analysis service. Okay? And you get the result back, which is JSON, like we saw before. Everything is always JSON when it comes back, and then you parse it. Now, this is an example of what we submit and what we get back. So in that case, it's only the sentiment analysis, which is going to say how positive is that? Okay, 92% positive, 85% positive. And then after that, in the example that I showed you, we had also a translation. So that would be another call to the translation. Then we have maybe another call to the keyword extraction. So you can change those services like that. If you want to use the SDK, and again, it's up to you, the SDK under the cover uses the REST APIs anyway. So it's always the same APIs that are used. The SDK, it's a little bit higher level, so you can do here a service client credentials. Okay, you pass it the subscription key. That's just for the authentication. And then after that, you use, in that case, for example, a text analytics client. So for every service we have a different kind of client that you can use. And then you submit here the input, and you get the output using here sentiment async. So this is an asynchronous call that you do like that. Okay? Where do you get all this information? If you go to the portal, for example, this is a custom vision cognitive service, and then you go down to key and endpoint. That's where you will find here the endpoint. So in that case, you see that I published this one to Eastern US, okay? And then you have your keys, and you have always 2 keys, and you can always regenerate them. So regenerating can be interesting. If suddenly you say, well, for example, I want to publish a new version of my application, and I want to make sure that the old version doesn't work anymore because it is really buggy and people should not use it anymore, then you can regenerate the key, and the old application which is relying on the old key will stop working. Okay? Like this, you can, after that, force your users, for example, to do an update, these kind of things. Or if you just want to, stop your service from working for any reason, really. So that could be a way to do things. Okay. Good. So if you're interested in these kind of things, I have a sample here, which is in GitHub and with the code and everything, which is doing different things. And one way that you can use cognitive services, for example, is in relationship with serverless functions, where you're going to say, well, when somebody uploads a picture, for example, to a blob storage. Blob storage in Azure is just a storage account where you can store really anything like video, sound, PDFs, text files, pictures, etc. Whenever somebody submits something to blob storage, it's going to trigger a function, and this function can then call the cognitive service, for example, to recognize what is on the pictures. This kind of thing can be done easily. So here I'm using that. And as you can see, I'm using that to do some creation of a thumbnail. That's another cognitive service we have where you can take a picture and then it's going to extract a square thumbnail. But it's going to be careful. Like, for example, if you have a person, that the face of the person is on the thumbnail. Or if there is something in the back, it's going to try to make thumbnails where the most important information is included in the thumbnail. Okay, so it's not just like cropping, it's going to crop in an intelligent manner. And the other example here is a handwritten text recognition. And again, those are untrained services. It's just, well, I would say pre-trained services, but I'm not refining the training in any way. Those are just available. Good. Now, sometimes you need to train or to refine the training of cognitive services. And that would be, on the easy to hard scale, that would be in the middle, the medium. Okay, we need to do something. So what are such examples? Well, sometimes it can be interesting, for example, if you do facial recognition, to give some pictures with actual names. Okay, or in the custom vision area, for example, I'm going to show you an example where we are going to train a model with pictures of apples and oranges, and then that's actually in Mandarin, but that's the closest I could find today to an orange. and then we are going to try things out. Okay, so the way that you do, we have a website called customvision.ai. There are different portals based on different cognitive services. You create a project, and here in the project, I'm going to say, all right, I want to do classification and not object detection. So the difference between classification and object detection is that here, if I say, okay, I'm training you with apples and oranges, and then I'm submitting a picture, it's going to say, okay, it's either an apple or an orange. It's going to classify the picture like that. Object detection, on the other hand, would be a recognition process where I submit an image and then it tells me, oh, I think it's a water bottle on a table, for example, these kind of things. Okay, those are two different types of detections. You can do multi-label or multi-class. I don't go into the detail, but multi-class is usually what we do with classification, because we are going to say, I submit a picture, like 50 pictures of an apple, and I label them apple, so I have one label per image, one tag per image. And then we have those domains. And for example, here I'm going to select food because I'm going to recognize food. So this is a pre-training, okay? But then after that, and by the way, there are also those compact domains. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. And then after that, you have to train the model. So you're going to submit some pictures. So here, notice I have 8 pictures of apples. I have 6 pictures of oranges. I happen to have bananas as well. And then I click on train. And the model is going to train itself based on what I give it. Okay? Then when you do that, you say, all right, now I have an iteration. I'm going to publish this iteration, and basically it's exposing the service as an API that I can then call using REST clients or using the SDK. Okay? Makes sense? Good. So let's see how it works. So here I have my custom vision project. You see that I created a new project called Fruit Recognizer Prague. Okay? I'm logged in with my credentials, and so it knows that I have an Azure subscription and everything I need. And then I uploaded apples and oranges. I trained the model. And if I go into performance here, this is the iteration that I trained 7 hours ago when I created the model in preparation. And I published this one, so it is available as an API, as an endpoint. Okay? If I need the URL, you can click here to see the URL of the endpoint. Here we go. So you see everything you need. Okay, if you have an image file, this is how you do things. You have a prediction key. Okay, so it tells you everything you need to do that, and you can submit either a URL of an image which is online or an actual picture file using the REST APIs or the SDK. Okay. Good, here I can already test my service, but I actually built an application. So let's see this application. It's a Xamarin application using Xamarin Forms, which allows me to run it on Android, iOS, or Windows, okay? And so I don't know if you're familiar with XAML, but it's very easy anyway. Okay, it's a little bit like HTML. I have a grid. I added a label, which is going to show the results that I get from the service. It starts with welcome. Then I'm adding an image because I want to show the image the pictures that I'm going to take in my application before I send it. Okay, and then I have a button for settings, and then I have a button to actually take the picture. Now in here, I also have a number of NuGet packages. Okay, so one important NuGet package is, of course, probably the most important here. I cannot go further, is of course this one, right? Microsoft.azure.cognitiveservices.vision.customvision.prediction. That's a very long name. Why am I using this here? It's because I want to use the SDK. All right, I'm not using the REST API. Actually, under the cover, it's using the REST APIs, but here I decided to use the SDK for the demo. I could do either way. Both work in exactly the same manner. Why do I have a dot prediction? It's because there is another NuGet package which is called dot training. Because you can also, from an application, from a Xamarin or .NET application, or something using .NET, you can also train your model. So for example, imagine you have the scenario of somebody, a technician, who is doing some repair. Okay? And then he has a part, but he's not sure what is this part. Takes a picture. The picture sends that to the custom vision service, comes back and says, oh, I think it's part number so-and-so. Okay? That's the prediction model. But let's say the service comes back and say, well, I'm really not sure. Okay, then the technician can go and identify the part with a different way, and then after that he can take the picture again and say, oh, this is part number so and so. Send it back to the model with the .training, and this is going to train the model. So you have the possibility to use either the training SDK or the prediction SDK, or both in an application. Good. A few other things I have here. I also have the exam.plugin.media. I don't know if you know James Montemagno. He's a wizard at Xamarin stuff. And this is because it's a Xamarin application, and the way you take a picture on Windows is not the same as the way you take a picture on iOS or Android, okay? But the plugin here is going to abstract that. I'm just going to say take picture, and then when it's on Android, it's going to take a picture in the Android way. When it's on Windows, it's going to take a picture in the Windows way. I don't have to worry about it. So that's what this plugin is doing. The rest is really just supporting stuff for Xamarin. So let's see what happens when I click on the button. So I have here my cognitive service SDK added. I have a custom vision prediction client. Okay, that's the client I'm going to use here. And when the button is clicked, I'm going to check if I have a prediction key and a project ID, because I need both. And again, those would be available. That would be the key. Okay, and the project ID, when you do your custom vision.ai, if you go here, this is a project ID, so you can find it in the portal. Okay. And then I need to have those, and then after that I'm going to create a new custom vision prediction client using the prediction key and the endpoint. I'm going to reset my UI. I'm going to initialize my plugin to take a picture. Maybe I'm on an Android SDK which doesn't have a camera. For example, it could be a TV where the TV doesn't have a camera, so these days even TVs have cameras. And then I'm going to take the picture, and again I'm taking the picture in a cross-platform way. I just tell the plugin, take a picture. If it's running on iOS, it's going to use the iOS way to take a picture. I say, all right, I want to save that in a directory under the name test.jpg, and then I'm going to call here recognize picture, and then I'm going to show the image. What does recognize picture do? It's one of my own methods. Okay, I wrote it. It's going to expect here I enumerable. Basically, it's a list of prediction model. Okay, that's what you get back from the SDK. Again, if you are doing a REST call, you would get some JSON, but here the SDK is parsing the JSON. It's a little bit more convenient. I'm going to take the files, that's the picture, the test.jpg that I just took. I'm going to get the stream of this file. And then I'm going to call classify image async on the SDK client, on the cognitive service client. To call this method, I need the project GUID, you saw it before, the published name, I'm going to come back to that in a second, and the stream of the picture. I submit that, and then I get back a list of predictions. And those lists of predictions have a dot probability between 0 and 100%. And I will get a number of predictions equal to the number of tags that I have in my portal. So here I have apple and oranges, so I will always get two predictions. It will tell me, I think it's an apple at 85%. I think it's an orange at 15%. Okay? And so I'm going to order them by order of probability, all right? The biggest probability first. And then I'm going to say, if I have one which is higher than 50%, then I'm pretty sure that it's accurate. I'm going to say, okay, if it's 85% chances it's an apple and 15% chances it's an orange, I'm going to ignore the orange part because I have already the 85% apple. Okay, that's the biggest probability. So in that case, I'm going to show that. Otherwise, I'm going to say I'm not quite sure, and then I'm going to show all the tags in descending order. Okay, probably it's an apple at 45%, maybe it's an orange at 35%, for example, something like that. Good. Now this thing about the published name here, this is something special. It's because when you create, I told you I train my model which creates an iteration. This iteration, and I'll show you that in a moment, you can give it a name. In that case, I was very original. I gave it the name published I could say hello world, I could say hello Prague, I could say my name is Laurent, whatever, okay? It's just a name. And the reason why you need to say which iteration you want to call is because into a model like that, you can have also multiple iterations. And you can say, well, the free tier is going to call this iteration, which is maybe less trained of my application. And if somebody paid for the application, you call another iteration, which is better trained, for example, whatever. Don't think I'm greedy, right? I'm just giving an example here, okay? So, and I'll show you that in a moment. When you publish a new iteration, you have to give it a name. Okay, so let's see how it works now. So I'm going to go here on Windows, and here I set the settings, okay, the different IDs that I need. And so if I take a picture now, I'm going to take here an apple, okay. Let's take the picture. I'm going to say yes. So you see here it's using the Windows UI, okay. And after a while, it comes back. It tells me, okay, Apple, 100% certainty that it's an apple. It's pretty certain. Let's try now with this one, which kind of looks like an orange, even though it's Mandarin. But it's going to probably fool the service enough. Also, it doesn't know what a Mandarin is because I only trained with apple and oranges, right? So it's going to tell me, well, it looks more like an orange than an apple. 100% certainty it's an orange. It works well. I can show you quickly the same thing here. So I have the application on my Android phone, and basically, without any surprise, it's going to work in exactly the same manner because it's exactly the same service that we are using. So I'm going to try without the flash. You see that now I'm using the Android experience, right? Because again, the UI knows, and again it says, okay, 100% Apple, so I have a cross-platform application taking advantage of AI using cognitive services. All right. Now let's try something sneaky. So now it's always interesting because what do you think will happen? What am I going to get back from the service, right? That's possible, yeah? What else? Who else thinks? What do you say? 2 zeros. Okay, let's try. Okay, I'm going to say, all right, let's take a picture of that. And let's see what it says. Huh. So you see, the reason why I ask is a little bit sneaky, right? It's because that's AI, and you think like a developer, which is correct. I also think like a developer. The first time I got that, I was totally surprised. The AI model lives in a world where he only knows apple and oranges. And the AI model is a little bit like a child who wants to make you happy, or like a puppy, let's say, okay? The puppy wants to make you happy. And it's going to say, well, I want to do the best I can with the knowledge I have. I know apple and oranges. It kind of looks like an apple because it's yellow. I don't know why it told me it's an apple. Maybe it's a color. I think it's a color. It always tells me it's an apple, never an orange for some reason. And so last time I showed that to someone, we had a big discussion afterwards. Like it went for an hour. It was really crazy. Like why, And then the person told me, well, it doesn't look like an apple at all. It's not round. So why can I not tell the model if it's not round, then it's definitely not an apple? Now I said, yes, you can do that, but then it's not AI anymore. Then you are prescribing to the model, to your application, that first of all, if it's not round, it's not an apple, and then do some recognition, right? So it's a little bit weird. Now inside the cognitive service, there is actually a way, and I'll show you that in a second, to say what it's not. So you can also train the model. Like if I was training the model with that and I say this is not an apple and not an orange, then it's going to be able to come back to me and tell me 0% apple, 0% orange, because I refined the training. Does that make sense? Okay? But in that case, let me show you now how I'm going to train the model to recognize the bananas. Okay? And notice I'm not even leaving the application because everything's online anyway. Good. So let's go back into the portal. I'm going to go to training images, and I'm going to say, all right, let's add some pictures. And here I have some pictures of bananas. Okay? Notice that I'm only taking a few. normally in the cognitive service documentation, they tell you at least 30 images would be good. But here I'm just taking a few because I'm satisfied with the accuracy. And now I'm going to tag it. So that's the answer part. Okay, I'm feeding the model with answers. And you see here it says negative. It's because I could say it's a negative for apple and orange. Okay, so if I submit, for example, a number of fruits, kiwi, blueberry, raspberry, etc., and all tagged with negative, then if I submit later a picture of a raspberry, it's going to come back and tell me 0% apple, 0% orange, because it knows it's not one of the tags. Does that make sense? This is a new feature, so I'm hoping I'm explaining it correctly, but it's a little bit difficult. I'm training the model to recognize what it's not. Okay. Here in that case, I'm going to say, no, I want to train it to recognize banana. So I enter banana, and then I submit those files to the model. Okay, so it's uploading. It's uploading via Wi-Fi. And then when I'm done, I'm going to train the model a second time. I'm going to do a new iteration with more data, okay? Please stop streaming your favorite Netflix. No? Okay. All right. Images submitted. Good. So now I have the pictures. Now I need to retrain the model. So I'm going to do another iteration. I'm choose quick training. If I chose advanced training, it would take longer, but it would be more accurate. Quick training is enough for what we do here. It's going to take just a few seconds to train. Notice the first iteration that I was using before is still there. Okay? It didn't disappear. But now what I'm going to do, now I'm going to say, all right, this iteration is the one that I want my cognitive service API to use now. So I'm going to remove this one. I'm going to publish this one. And when I publish it, remember in my settings, I enter the name. I told you, well, the name here is published. I could name it whatever I want, okay? Here I'm going to say, now I want to use this iteration, and then I need to say which Azure resource we are using for the subscription to be built. Okay? Let's publish that. So now it means that every call to the API which has the name published is going to go to iteration 2 instead of going to iteration 1. I could very well leave iteration 1 with a different name if I wanted to. And so now I can go back to my application. I didn't even restart it because it's already configured to use that. Now I can submit the picture of a banana. And now it should come back, hopefully, crossing fingers, saying that it's a banana at 100% because now the child knows what a banana is. Now it lives in a wonderful planet with 3 fruits, apple, oranges, and bananas. Okay? So it worked. Now this is cool because my online model can be retrained without me having to republish an application to the Apple Store and the Google Store, the Play Store, okay? But of course, it's kind of slow, okay? Because I need to submit a picture, wait for a few seconds, and then wait until it comes back. The latency is high. So for example, if you use it for video, that wouldn't be a good thing. So now I'm going to show you how you can create a model or train a model and then use it offline. There are a few ways, okay? So online, it's cool because you can update your model, you can retrain your model, you don't need to do anything in the application, it's just going to work. So that's cool. But the latency is high. It takes seconds to hit the service and come back. Also, it means that it's not suitable for videos because in a video, what you do is that you grab a frame, you submit to the service, it comes back seconds later with an answer, but by then the scene changed already, and then it's not accurate anymore. Also, the pictures that I published them, I sent them to the cloud. And there are a lot of firms, understandably, who don't want to submit training images to a cloud. It's not even a question of Microsoft versus Google versus Amazon, it's just the cloud. They don't want to hear about the cloud. They want to have those training images locally in their own machine because maybe it's sensitive information, maybe it's the employee name and address, for example, or whatever, okay? So they say, no, we don't want to train the model in the cloud, out of question. Also, you need an internet connection all the time because the model is online. So that can be tricky. So that's why we also have the possibility to export those models for local usage, for offline usage. So that is always possible with cognitive services, but also if you train your own model, you're also able to export it in different formats that you can use, okay? And then once you have, for example, a popular format is of course Docker, a container format, okay? And then if you have a Docker container, you can run it locally on your machine or on your server in your own firm in the Docker engine, or all the popular clouds have possibilities to run Docker containers. For example, on Azure, we have something called Azure Container Instances, ACI, where you can just upload the Docker container and then it's going to run. AWS, GCP have that. Or even edge devices. There are some small devices, what we call edge devices, which can run AI model directly. For example, this is not able to run a Docker container because it's a very small drone, but DJI has drones, like the big drones, that are able to run Docker container directly on it. So we did collaborate with them to create cognitive services, and those drones are able to check, for example, a pipeline to say, oh, there is an anomaly, it might be a damage. And so instead of having someone, a person, analyzing the stream at all times when the drone is flying, and saying, oh, I think it's an anomaly. Here you get an answer from the drone saying, I think there is an anomaly at this GPS location. Maybe you should send a team to check it out. Okay? And since those drones nowadays can run missions in a totally autonomous manner, basically you send it once a day to check your pipeline, and then you just get an SMS saying, oh, I think there is a damage here. But you don't have to do the work yourself. Again, those small drones here cannot do that. They are not powerful enough. But the big drones, for example, the Matrix or the Inspire at DJI are able to do that. Good. So, cognitive services. So I told you any model can be exported to a Docker container. For cognitive services, you even have the possibility to go and download it. For example, we have the Face APIs that you can download. Now, it's a pretty big download. It's like 2.5 gigabytes. Okay? It's a big download. But then after that, what you download is the API itself. Just like before I called the REST API, you're going to have the REST API running in your machine. So I'm going to demonstrate that to you. If you want to know how to do that, you can go to this URL to get the address. I'll give you the links later. It's detailing quite precisely how you do things. And those models, those 2.5 gigabytes, of course, that's not going to run on Android, iOS, or even Windows, right? Windows you kind of can, but on Android and iOS definitely not. It's too big. So you also have the possibility to export those models to mobile format. In that case, it's a little bit more complicated because it's not a Docker container anymore. It's the actual model, like a TensorFlow model for Android, a Core ML model for iOS, and then you need to know a little bit how to call it from Xamarin, but there is some documentation about that here. Okay? So let me show you. Because I told you a lot of things, and I understand it can be a little bit tricky. So what do I have here? First of all, I have Docker Desktop. On my Windows machine, I could have it on Linux, anywhere. Okay? Docker Desktop is going to be able to take a container, a Docker container, and run it. The container knows what it does. In that case, it is the cognitive service, the Face API, which is running locally on my machine. So I downloaded this thing. It's about 2.5 gigabyte big. And then I'm going to run a command. And in this command, I'm going to say to Docker, please run this container. Okay? So now it is running it on port 5000. Okay? So let's go into a web browser, and I'm going to run localhost 5000. And basically, you see what I get? I get an Azure Cognitive Service container exposed as an API, but it's in localhost. I'm not hitting the internet at all. I'm just local. For any one of our services on Azure, whatever service that is, we always have a Swagger definition. Are you familiar with Swagger? Basically, okay, it tells you exactly what you have. So you see, we have, for example, face-v10/detect. We have find similar, which is another service. It's going to tell you if one image is equal to the other one, if it's the same person. We have divide candidate faces into groups based on face similarities. That can be tricky. Identify, verify, etc. But we also have things like training. So here I can also train my face recognition API without those images going into Azure at all, because everything is running in localhost. You see what I mean? So that's the advantage, one of the advantages of running this locally. So let's see how this works. So if I go back to the intelligent kiosk, remember when I was doing the face detection before, let's not take this one because it runs on image. Here, real-time crowd insight, okay? So I don't know if you can read, but down there is a latency, and right now it says, well, it's 2.4 seconds. Now it's at 800 milliseconds, which is not bad. It means that you have a pretty good internet connection here. But now suddenly I have 2.7 seconds, not milliseconds, seconds, okay? So that's a high latency, okay? It means that every time it calls the service, it takes, in that case, 1.5 seconds to come back. It's a high latency because I'm hitting the service online in Eastern US. So now here I have a possibility to say in the settings, instead of using, Western US, sorry. Instead of using Western US, please use a custom endpoint. And you see I'm using localhost colon 5000. So I'm using the local API. And it's exactly the same APIs that we have in Western US, except that now it's running locally on my machine. And so now if I go back to here, now it's running without heating. The first call is a little bit slower because the service has to spin up. But now you see the latency is only at 300 milliseconds. Yeah, smile. Hello, it come back. So basically I can reduce the latency to something like 300 milliseconds because the call is local. Okay? Or sometimes it goes even lower than that depending on the lighting, etc. So basically that's one advantage. I reduce the latency. Another advantage is if I say I want to train this service to recognize not just my emotions but also my identity, those images don't go to Microsoft Cloud, they stay on your local machine, okay? However, and that will be the last demo, I told you that those services are really big, okay? So how do you do things if you want to go on mobile? In the case of Xamarin application, for example, that can be interesting. Well, you see there is a save button here, a download button. However, it says only iterations trained using a compact domain can be exported. What does it mean? Well, you know, when I had to create the project, I showed you the different domains. There was food, there was, I forget what domain we have. If I go to the settings, those are the domains that we have. So we have general, if you don't really, if it's too diverse. Food, in that case, it's for fruits, I use food. Landmarks, retail. We also have a compact version of those. Okay, so now if I change the setting to food compact, save the changes, and now I need to retrain my model. So now if I retrain the model, it's going to create a third iteration. Notice that iteration number 2, which is using the full domain, is still there. That's the one I'm going to use online. Iteration number 3, it's going to be way smaller. It means that it will be less accurate. But the good thing is that the model is going to be so much smaller that I can export it, for example, as a Core ML format for iOS, as a TensorFlow format for Android, as an Onyx model for, those are just different formats, okay, for Windows ML, or even as a Docker file for small devices, for example, the drone that we saw before, Azure IoT Edge, Azure Function, etc. And then we have this Vision AI Dev Kit, which is a new format that we are using right now. So now if I select, for example, Onyx, export, it's going to create this format, download it as a Onyx file. Let's save that here. And this one is going to be way smaller. You see as the zipped version is 3.5 megabyte, okay? So it's very small. Let's just wait until it's created. Okay, come on. All right. Now I'm going to open this file because we can take a look at the Onyx. And so here we have the Onyx format, the Onyx model itself, which is uncompressed. It's 4.9 megabytes. 4.9 megabytes, yes. And so it is small enough that I can load it, for example, on a small Windows machine or in the case of TensorFlow, on an Android machine, and use it directly from Xamarin application, for example. Does that make sense? Cool. And if we open this is always interesting. You can always, there is this Netron, it's actually a visualizer for those things. And here you can see the whole layers of the Android file, so of the Onyx file, sorry. So this is the multi-layered neural network, like I told you. So here you can see every layer with a ReLU, which is a normalization function. I don't go into the detail, but basically that's what the computer was trained based on the image that I submitted. Okay? Yes?
This will be working without the internet connection at all?
Correct. So the first version that I showed you, the Docker one, needs an internet connection about every half an hour. Why? Well, it's because, again, I have kids and they like to eat, and at some point we need to bill you for using the services, even when they run in Docker locally. I know that they are working on a way to actually continue billing, but in an offline manner. But right now, this is what it does. Every half an hour, it's going to call home to say, hey, I was used so many times. The TensorFlow, Onyx, and CoreML model, however, those are free of charge. So you can run them in a totally offline manner. However, they are less accurate than the full-blown model, which is running in Docker. Okay, so those, yeah, you can use them absolutely. Like in that case, the fruit recognizer, if I consume it on my Android thing, I could go totally offline and use it, even on videos, for example, because it's fast enough that it can call the video.
These mobile modules, can I train them, or
no,
they are only pre-trained?
No, those are those are based on the iteration that you created. Mm-hmm. You download it. Those ones you cannot train them again. If you want to refine the training, then you have to go back to the portal, make another iteration, download it again, and then replace it in your application. Which means you need to republish the application because the Onyx model is the TensorFlow model in that case is going to be part of the application. Okay? Mm-hmm. Cool. All right, so if you want to know more about cognitive services in general, we have documentation. Okay, so always if you go to docs.microsoft.com, that's where you get started. Or we even bought docs.com. So if you go to docs.com, you end up in our documentation. After that, look for cognitive services. We have a lot of quick start. You see it says here 5-minute quick start. We have a lot of small videos, like 5-minute videos, where we tell you, oh, that's how you can do your first Hello World cognitive service application. All right, so like this, it motivates you to get started. We have a lot of stuff. I don't know if I can zoom here. Yeah, I can actually. Using C#, using Java, using Objective-C, using JavaScript, etc. for every service. So we have a lot of those get started documentation. Here in Microsoft Learn is another resource that we have. You can learn for free. Okay, so you don't even need an Azure account. We have some sandboxes that we give you, like we tell you, okay, you can create a new service. It's going to live for like an hour or half an hour, depending on the service. You don't even need an Azure account, and then you can try things out. It's a great resource to learn things. You can gain some experience points, which is kind of a gamification. You can also select a learning path to get eventually certified. Okay, this is not the certification here, but it's just a way to learn. And here we have, I also put you some resources. For example, the intelligent kiosk, the custom vision client repos, that's the Xamarin client that I showed you before, etc., etc. So all you need is at this URL, and you will also be able to get the slides at this URL as well. Feel free to reuse anything you want. And finally, if you want to create a free Azure account to get started, we give you $200 to use on any service, which means that you can train an AI model with a lot of GPU for about 35 seconds, I suppose, because those are very expensive. But if you want to just run a website, for example, you can use that for 30 days without any limitations. You can use really any service you want. And then after that, we have quite a lot of services are free for another year. Okay, so you have time to train yourself, to try it out. We also have a lot of services, like cognitive services, which have what we call a free tier. So it's going to allow you a number of calls for free. And then after a while, you start paying per call. Azure Function, same thing. It's about the time it takes to execute. If you work with students, you can go to the address down below, and then we are going to help you. For example, you can enroll your whole class, for example, and get free accounts, these kind of things. Okay? All right, so if you have questions, I'll take them happily. If you want to eat pizza, I don't blame you, so that's fine as well, but I'm going to stick around a little bit more. Hopefully it was helpful for you. Those cognitive services, this is one of my favorite presentations because those are really fun to use. So even for us developers, when we start doing things and comes back and it tells you, oh, I think it's an apple, that's a kind of a good feeling, right? So I can only recommend you if you want to start building applications using that, it's really a lot of fun. All right? Yes?
One question out of curiosity to your sample application. If you put there a photography which will contain both apple and orange, it will recognize both of them, or it will just choose randomly one of them and try to...
No, in that case, it's going to classify. So it's going to, because I use classification, I didn't use image detection. So if I had used image detection, which is the other option, then it's going to come back and tell me, I think it's an apple and an orange. Okay, but here it's going to tell me just what it's more likely. So if the apple looks better or is closer or whatever, it's going to tell me it's rather, because this is a classification model where it only knows apple or orange or banana.
So it's more or less unpredictable. It depends
on. It depends. Well, the AI anyway is unpredictable. That's why every time I show those demo, I'm kind of crossing my fingers that it works, because it's like a black box, and sometimes small differences in the lighting or in the blurriness or the resolution of the picture can change the prediction quite a bit. If you're interested in knowing more about that, well, I do have a session, but unfortunately I didn't publish it as a video yet. But which is like how to train a model, and one of my colleagues, Cesc Juarez, has a video where he shows you how to train a model actually. Then he does recognition between pizza and hot dog, which is like tricky, right? But the model is surprisingly able to recognize quite well. Yeah, it's based on a number of things, but in that case, I don't know. I mean, we can always try, right? It's a good question. I don't think I ever tried here. Let me see, where is my custom client? Here we go. Here, let's confuse it totally, okay? And yeah, I'm actually curious what it's going to say, so let me frame that a little bit better. I think because the apple, okay, let's fool it completely, because the apple was in the middle, so it's kind of cheating. Okay, so I do have all three fruits, and now it's going to tell me. I'm sure it's going to go with the apple because the apple is in the middle. It's quite confused. Huh? Well, I don't think that's the problem here. I think it's just rather the internet is only a little bit slower or something. Come on. Hello. I still have the iteration online, right? Why is it not coming back? It seems that it's going to time out. I'm not sure why. Well, I'll let you know. I'll try home and I'll let you know, okay? Or maybe we can try, because here I have my own connection, so I can try with the Android one. Okay, so here I have all three. Okay, let's try. Yeah, banana, interesting. Well, yeah, I wouldn't have known. But basically, the way that I train the model and the way that I'm calling it also calls for just one answer back. So, yeah.
I would like to ask, is it possible to do this in the free tier? For example, I would like to try an application which will recognize banana, apple, and
yes.
Something else, and to submit the images, everything. This is for free, yes?
Yes, so it's for free up to a certain number of calls. Which I don't know by heart how much is it, but it's quite generous normally, so you can call it for quite a number of times for free, and then after a number of times it's going to start billing you by call.
In the learning part, I'm still using the calls?
In in the training you mean?
Yes.
Training, so if you go to the portal, there is a number of times that you can iterate for free. So let's see, where do I see that already? Here. So here you see the pricing tier. I'm using S0, which is So here you can get more information about the difference. So F0 is a free tier. And here S0 means that until a certain point, so F0 means if you reach that limit, then it stops working. Okay, so it doesn't bill you anymore. Here I chose S0 because I'm lucky that Microsoft is paying the bill here, so I don't have to pay for it myself. But still, it's not very expensive anyway. And you see here it says, okay, I created 2 projects. I can create 100 projects. Huh? I'm not talking about iterations here. And then here I can upload 100,000 images to train. And I can create 10 iterations per project. Okay, so I have 100 projects times 10 iterations.
If you delete one iteration, you can create another one instead of?
You can, yes, those are the saved iterations. So you can delete an iteration. Like for example, if you go here, performance, and now I say this iteration, I want to delete it. For example, now I just have 2. And, it's in the settings here. Now I have 2 iterations saved, 8 remaining, okay? So you can have a maximum of 10 iterations per project. And the tags also, there is also a limit on the tags. I can create 500. Now this is a paying tier. This is not the free tier, okay? So this one is quite generous. So if you change to the free tier, let's try and see what it says. Okay. It was just a little bit slow. Free tier, I can create 2 projects, okay? And 5,000 images, 50 tags, and 10 iterations as well per project. So only 2 projects for the free tier.
Just more or less how much costs the paid tier?
I don't know. No, seriously, I mean, I prefer to be honest here. I don't know. I know that it's not very expensive and it's per call. Okay, so it's your build as you go. If you use it a lot, you pay more. If you use it less, I'm not sure about the pricing. You can always find information about the pricing if you go to the Azure pricing calculator. So just type Azure pricing calculator in your favorite search engine, or like my colleague Scott Henselman say, you can Google it with Bing. And here you can look for cognitive services. And then you can say quite precisely what you want to use. So for example, you want to use custom vision, because it also depends on the region where you want to be. Like for example, here, let's say we want to try Western Europe in the standard. That's what S0 means. Okay, free is free, of course. So then you can say, all right, I want to have 10,000 transactions, which is going to cost me $20 per, so for the transactions, right? And the training, I don't know, just 1 hour for training, right? Because it's a simple service. And image storage, you're going to pay for that also, but storage is very cheap. So let's say that you have 1,000 images, it's $70. It's going to call you, in that case, for 10,000 transactions. Okay, it's going to cost you $40. So it's relatively, I mean, it's not very expensive, right? It's okay.
And what will happen if, let's say, somebody will have application, people start to use it, and suddenly 500,000 people will try to use it?
Then you pay more.
Automatically.
Yes, but then you also earn more.
So you have to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there is a limit, right? I mean, you see the limit is, what did I say? Transactions. I forget where it was. 100. No, the 100 is, well, anyway. Yeah, no, I mean, when you use it more, it's by usage. So when you use it more, you pay more, but you also earn more. So, you know, yeah. And here it takes in account, like for example, if you go to really 500,000, you say, right? Then suddenly I pay $1,000. But then I'm probably going to make money with my project, right? I mean, that's kind of the idea at the end. So, yeah. Make sense?
But is there some protection against like...
Sorry?
Is there some protection against like DOS attacks and so on? Like to...
Yeah.
Transactions or the budgets?
Oh, no. So all of our systems are pretty secure. So yes, I mean, and also there is always the possibility to call support and say, look, something bad happened, right? Always, right? So that is because sometimes what happens and what happened to some of my colleagues, is that they forget virtual machine, for example, and then suddenly they end up with like $5,000. You know, well, you can call support, and usually if you say, look, it was really a mistake, or in the case of a DDoS attack, definitely you can say, look, my service was called, but I didn't even use it. What's going on? Then they will go through the logs. They will tell you, okay, it's no problem, right?
So you don't have to pay.
No. For this kind of scenario, you go through support. But anyway, Azure is pretty secure, right? Now, if you run it locally, then you're responsible for securing your Docker instance, obviously. But if it's running on Azure, this is like we have. You can't imagine how many thousands of attacks we have every day, and this is pretty secure, yeah. Yeah.
Can I somehow, as a developer, say that I want this to have budget of $100 and nothing more, and then shut down?
Yes, so you can always, on your subscription, not specifically